the silent hormone shift. Are chemicals in food changing gender expression? We often think of food as fuel, a necessary part of survival, an aspect of culture, a source of pleasure. But what if the food we consume is doing more than just nourishing our bodies? What if, hidden within the neatly packaged meats, dairy products, and even vegetables, there were unseen forces at play, shaping not just our health, but our very identity? In recent decades, an alarming trend has emerged. Testosterone levels in men are declining at an unprecedented rate. Fertility rates are plummeting, and, perhaps most controversially, gender identity discussions have become more prevalent than ever before. While social and psychological factors are often discussed in these debates, a deeper question remains largely ignored. Is the modern food industry chemically altering human biology? Could the hormones, antibiotics, and endocrine disrupting chemicals used in factory-farmed food be reshaping gender expression, influencing sexual development, and contributing to the rise in gender dysphoria? Science tells us that hormones govern everything, from our mood to our physical characteristics to the way we perceive ourselves in the world. And yet, in the last century, the food we consume has undergone radical changes. The animals we eat are injected with hormones to make them grow faster. Dairy cows are pumped with synthetic estrogen to produce more milk. Our vegetables and grains are coated in pesticides that act as endocrine disruptors. And in our water supply, birth control residues and plastic-derived chemicals seep into our systems. If hormones shape human development, can we ignore the possibility that mass exposure to artificial hormones through food is altering human gender expression? The global decline of testosterone, a crisis no one is talking about. Let's start with one of the most alarming trends in modern biology, the dramatic worldwide decline in testosterone levels. Studies show that over the last 50 years, men's testosterone levels have dropped by more than 20% per generation. In simpler terms, a 25-year-old man today has significantly less testosterone than his grandfather did at the same age. In 2007, a landmark study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that men's testosterone levels in the United States had dropped by roughly 1% per year since the 1980s. Another study from the European Journal of Endocrinology confirmed similar trends worldwide. What's causing this decline? Many experts argue that sedentary lifestyles, obesity, and stress are partly to blame, but there's a growing body of research that points to chemicals in our food and environment, specifically endocrine disrupting compounds that mimic or block testosterone production. One of the biggest culprits, factory-farmed meat and dairy. Most factory-farmed animals are injected with synthetic hormones like estrogen, testosterone inhibitors, and growth stimulants to increase production. When we consume these products, we're not just eating protein, we're absorbing trace amounts of these chemicals. A 2010 study, published in Environmental Health Perspectives, found that men with higher consumption of hormone-treated meat had significantly lower sperm counts and testosterone levels. Beyond meat, another major source of hormonal disruption comes from plastics and pesticides. The compound bisphenol A BPA, found in plastic food packaging, has been proven to lower testosterone and increase estrogen activity. Studies have shown that when BPA enters the bloodstream, it binds to estrogen receptors in the body, tricking the brain into thinking there's more estrogen present than there actually is. Could this global testosterone decline be linked to rising trends in gender fluidity and gender dysphoria? It's a controversial question, but one that demands deeper investigation. The hidden estrogen problem. Are we consuming feminizing chemicals? Testosterone levels are plummeting, but estrogenic compounds in food are increasing. One of the most common sources of unintentional estrogen consumption is conventional dairy. The average glass of milk today contains high levels of synthetic estrogen and progesterone, as dairy cows are treated with recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH, to increase milk production. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Endocrinology found that men who consumed large amounts of commercial dairy had higher estrogen levels and lower testosterone levels than those who consumed organic dairy or avoided dairy altogether. But it's not just dairy. Soy, which contains phytoestrogens, has also been debated as a potential contributor to hormonal imbalance. While soy is a plant-based estrogen rather than an artificial hormone, excessive consumption may still have feminizing effects on men. What happens when humans are exposed to constant low doses of estrogenic compounds in food? Increased body fat and lower muscle mass, both signs of testosterone deficiency. Mood instability, anxiety, and depression. Hormones influence neurotransmitters. Potential disruption in gender identity formation during puberty. Declining fertility rates, which have fallen significantly over the last century. A study from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences suggests that prolonged exposure to artificial estrogen from food may alter the natural hormonal balance during key developmental stages, particularly in fetuses, infants, and young children. This leads us to one of the most controversial aspects of this debate: are factory-farmed foods behind the rise in gender dysphoria? In the last 20 years, there has been an unprecedented increase in gender dysphoria diagnoses, particularly in Western countries. Gender dysphoria is a complex psychological and physiological condition, and its causes are not fully understood. Many researchers point to social, cultural, and psychological factors, but could environmental hormone exposure be playing a hidden role? Consider this. If early exposure to artificial estrogenic compounds can alter physical development, is it possible that it can also influence gender identity formation? Studies have already confirmed that hormonal imbalances during pregnancy can affect sexual differentiation in the brain. Prenatal exposure to estrogen-mimicking chemicals has been linked to changes in sexual behavior in animal studies. For example, research published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews showed that male rodents exposed to excessive estrogen in the womb displayed more female typical behaviors and had lower testosterone production throughout life. What if something similar is happening in humans? This is not to say that all gender identity shifts are biologically driven, but if we acknowledge that hormones shape every aspect of human development, we cannot ignore the possibility that hormone-altering chemicals in food may be influencing self-perception and identity at a biological level. Final thoughts: the unanswered questions. The intersection of food, hormones, and gender identity is one of the most controversial and underexplored scientific discussions of our time. We know that. Testosterone levels are dropping globally at an alarming rate. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are present in nearly all processed and factory-farmed foods. Estrogenic compounds in dairy, meat, and plastics are altering human hormone levels. Prenatal and early life hormone exposure has been shown to influence sexual development in animal studies. And yet, we rarely ask, what is all of this doing to the next generation? As the food industry continues to evolve, the long-term effects of hormone exposure through food remain largely unexamined in public discourse. But one thing is certain: hormones shape identity, behavior, and development. And if the food we eat is changing our hormones, how much of our modern reality is being quietly rewritten without us even noticing?